This is the Sunseeker Predator 65, and it reminds me a little bit of the TV series Succession. Why? Well, because like with the Roys, the greatest threat to this comes from within the family, because it's based on the Sport Yacht 65, which is one of the most engaging driver's boat I've tested in the last couple of years. And that boat is exactly the same as this, apart from you get that dinky little sports bridge on the roof. Not only that, it's also competing with some little known shipyards like Reaver, Pershing, Princess and Fairline. So to see how the Predator 65 stacks up, in this review I'm going to give it an in-depth tour of the decks and the interior, show you what's good and what's not so good about the design, talk about pricing, but before all of that, see what it's like to drive. I'm Jack Haines and this is YachtBuyer. From the upper helm, from the sky helm as Sunseeker term it, the 65 Sport Yacht, well, it feels like a 40-ton go-kart. It really does. It's a huge amount of fun. And the Predator 65 still has that. They both have the same IPS engine options. There are two. This is 1350 with 1,000 horsepower per side. There's a smaller one that I don't think they've built any boats with yet. But you still get that really nice, smooth handling that you'd expect from a big IPS boat like this. It's a few turns lock to lock, but actually the turn-in is really nice. And it responds very nicely to the helm indeed, actually. We're not travelling too quickly at the moment, we're only doing 25 knots. But it's all very serene and very secure and really quite enjoyable. Maybe not quite as smile-wideningly good as the 65 Sport Yacht from the upper helm, but still pretty good. But what really stands out for me is how quiet this thing is when you're cruising. So as I said, we're doing 25 knots now, and it's well under 70 decibels when you're travelling at that speed. Obviously you've got IPS, so the engines are set a long way back in the hull. They've clearly done a very good job with the engine room insulation. So this is a really quiet, refined, comfortable cruising speed. And if you drop it back to about 23 knots, you're going to get nearly 400 nautical miles at that speed, because you've got a 3,500 litre fuel capacity. Even flat out at 33 knots, you're getting around 300 nautical miles. So you've got really decent cruising range on this thing. And it is that ability to cruise so comfortably and quietly, not have to raise your voice when you're covering ground at 25 knots. It's a super comfortable driving position. The view generally is very good. It's got, I think, one of the biggest single piece windscreens of any production though. It does mean you have quite a large mullion and therefore quite big blind spot on this starboard side. But this window does go a long way forward, so it's not too difficult to poke your head across and check what's coming over from the starboard side. Everything feels a little bit far away, but you've got really good control around you. So yeah, the MFDs, if you're going to use them as touchscreens, they're a stretch away, but I've got the Garmin control down here right by my leg, so I can flick between them remotely, flick between functions, zoom in and out of the chart, do all that stuff without having to actually touch the screens. And then you've got these really cute sort of semi-digital dials down here as well that we first saw actually on the 65 Sport Yacht, and you've got a little BMW iDrive style control down here where you can flick between those functions. You're going to use the MFDs mainly, but they do look really attractive, and in general it's a very, very smart, clean looking dash. Everything is controlled digitally mainly. Even the boat's functions are all through the CMate system. The only actual switches you've got are for the anchor, the horn, the sunroof and then the electric window. So it's incredibly clean, but it's very nice to look at. I'm glad though they've put all of those buttons around me so that I'm not constantly having to move forward to interact with the dash. That said, the driving position is very good. You can slide the seat back and forth so you can get nice and close to the wheel. You can push it back far enough so you can stand it, drive if you'd like to. There's a nice footrest here, so yeah, if you just want to settle in and cover the miles, this is a really comfortable position. The other thing I should mention in terms of functionality is you've got the steering wheel controls here. These are like the paddles that you get on a sort of gearbox for a car, but they're actually controlling the screen. So you cannot complain about the control of the electronics you have here. You've got it down here, you've got the touchscreen, and you've got it behind the wheel. It works very, very nicely indeed. Topped out today at 33 knots. We had quite a bit of tide behind us. We had 36 one night, 30 the other, but yeah, 30 knots very comfortably indeed. I think you're going to live at this 25 knot speed, to be honest. That's where the boat feels really comfortable. It's not been particularly rough today. We've had a bit of typical Solent chop from other boats. This is a big open area down here, so you're quite aware of the water running underneath the hull, but when it does cross through the waves, it just romps through it really quite comfortably. But as I said, pretty hard to test it in heavy weather when we're faced with conditions like this. When I tested the 65 Sport Yacht, it was a fair bit rougher than this, and it coped with it really well. Well, that's what it's like to drive then. Let's get the anchor down and have a closer look around. Before we get going, let's talk about pricing, shall we? The base price for the Predator 65 is £2.24 million, excluding VAT, with these engines. This boat is around £2.84 million ex VAT, but it's pretty much as heavily spec'd as you find. So it's got things like the med pack, which quite clearly prepares the boat for the med. That's £131,000, but that includes things like the uprated 17.5 kilowatt generator, the air conditioning, the tender launch system in there, passerelle. So there's some big ticket items that are part of that pack, and on top of that, this boat's also got the Seakeeper, it's got the aft docking station, it's got the Volvo DPS dynamic positioning system, and it's got the crew cabin fit out as well. So as I said, heavily spec boat, but really is turnkey package ready to go. Let's have a closer look around the decks then. Let's start back here at the transom then. Hydraulic bathing platform, as you would expect. This sinks down and there are steps built in as well. You can also put in some metal steps that slot into the deck here to make it easy to get on and off the deck. Obviously the tender lives inside the garage here. There's space for a Williams 345 or something of that size, and there is space around that for other water toys as well. You can also spec the Beach Club package, so when you lift this up, that includes some lighting in there. You've got a shower overhead as well. There is a deck shower that you can just pull out if you need to, but that overhead shower is quite nice if you want a proper shower when you come out the sea. And that is a really big space, and there's enough space in there even with the tender in there for storage of fenders and things like that. So that is very useful and obviously keeps this area lovely and clean. There's access up both sides into the cockpit. As you come up through the steps, you see this is where the passerelle pops out of, if you have that spec'd, and all the controls for the likes of the passerelle, the garage, the bathing platform, they're all down here, really easy to read, neatly labelled, very easy to get to, and you've got your mooring gear as well, which includes things like winches. The med pack also includes extra spring cleats, so you can tie the boat across to spring it in the med. And I like these little details, like you've got a little rope in here with the 65 emblem engraved on the top. When it comes to the cockpit, this isn't actually the standard option. As standard, you have a couple of bar stools here. This drops down, as we'll see later on, and you have just sort of central seating. But this C-shaped seating area is one of the most popular options on the boat. It's a £13,000 option, but quite obviously it just gives you a much bigger seating space, and clearly this not being the sports bridge, you haven't got any seating up top, so really here and the foredeck, when it comes to outdoor living, this is where you're going to be. So that extra seating, I can see why that's so popular. And with the table opened up and some chairs over on this side, that really is a fabulous dining space. The only downside to this arrangement is it blocks off access to the port side deck from inside the cockpit, so you have to go all the way down, around and back up again. Of course you can climb over, but with the standard version you can just walk through onto the side deck. So that's a compromise, but it sounds like a compromise that most people are willing to make. Another thing you get as part of the med pack is the Cockpit Shade. So you push a button and the shade pushes out over here, gives you a nice amount of cover over that sandpad. Touch a button and it comes again. So you can adjust the amount of shade and protection you've got over this area. Crew cabin, that's here. As I said, £25,000 option. This one has actually got it. It's not a particularly big boat, unlikely to be crewed. It's 25 grand you can save. If you just want to use it as storage space, it's not going to be a particularly comfortable place for someone to sleep, but it's an option if you want it. The other option I mentioned, which we've got here, is the cockpit docking station. So that gives you joystick control, of course. You've also got engine stop start and your control of the bow thruster as well. That's proportional too, so you can use that independently of the joystick. In a good position. The only thing is it is the same side as the helm. So as we'll see when we get out to sea, it means that all of your control is on the starboard side, which means you're just going to be probably doing whatever you can to be mooring starboard side too. If you're coming stern to though, that is a great position. Last thing to mention here, you've got a boarding gate, which is quite nice. So if you're side to a tall fuel key, for example, you don't have to go down and clamber up from the bathing platform. You can pop this open and step straight onto the quayside. Now I actually toured this boat at the London Luxury Afloat show, and I'll put a link to that tour in the description. And I didn't really notice then that this actually feels quite low. It's when you get out to sea, when you're having to sort of steady yourself, where I've noticed that actually this is set quite low. Obviously there's no rail here. You've got this big sort of glass panel, so you are having to crouch down a little bit to grab onto the rail here, but the side decks are a really good size. They're really nice and wide. You've got a decent tow rail. It's just that someone my height, I'm feeling I have to crouch down a little bit to steady myself on the guardrail. Moving forward, this area has fresh importance on a sports cruiser, I think, because, as I've said, it's one of your 2 outdoor living spaces. It's a nice space. They've got this styling line. You know, they could have left this broken. It's a way to keep the profile as sleek as possible. It means you do have to step over it if you're crossing from deck to deck, but, you know, it's in the name of aesthetics. It's a little bit of a pain, but it's not the end of the world. And then this is a nice space. You've got the split of sofa. You've got some nice sunbathing space here with pop-up backrests so you can make them a bit more comfortable. You've got built-in cup holders here, you've got a charging port as well for a device up there, and you've just got some nice storage bins at the top there to chuck lines, smaller items, things like that. You can also, using carbon fibre poles and a canopy, put some shade up here so you can get a bit of protection when it's really, really hot. And then of course you've got the working area forward where you've got your mooring gear, anchor locker, all of that stuff. Let's head inside. Moving inside then, and as usual on this style of boat, they're really trying to blend these indoor and outdoor areas, and one of the ways they've done that is by having the 2-part sliding door, so this pushes right across to the starboard side, but then you've got the rather slow and rather noisy window, but this does eventually drop right down, and you can flip this over, and then you have this sort of little bar area where you can line your drinks up and pass stuff out to people out there. But it is effective once it's down. You know, you have this fantastic view out. If you're in the galley, you can sit out aft, and it is lovely. And it's a really good galley space as well. It's a practical shape. You can wedge yourself in nicely. There's plenty of countertop. Obviously, the cover for the sink as well, which pops out. But if you're not using the sink, God, it's quite heavy. If you're not using the sink, then you can cover it up and have some extra counter space. It's all induction cooking here. You've got Miele oven, microwave, and your hob. And then up here, you've got lots and lots of nice little storage bits with fiddling here for even the teapot, even down to the salt and pepper shaker. Very nicely done. Over here, we've got some sockets, so they just pop up when you need them and disappear away. Yeah, it's really nice. Dishwasher down here. And I really love this effect they've got on the wood here. That this runs throughout, and you see it in details on the helm and places like that. But it's lovely. It does look really smart. Cooling space over on this side, and it's big. Really good. Domestic size fridge up top, freezer below, and then as an option, you can have what is a impressively large wine cooler as well. And this gives you a bit of flat storage space up here. This could probably do with a little edge on it, so you can put stuff up there and not worry about it rolling around. But hey, we've got a seakeeper fitted. We don't need to worry about that, do we? Moving forward, this is the part of the Predator 65 that makes all the difference. Under this enormous sunroof, it is truly huge. I mean, just look at this aperture here, and it's really heavily tinted as well. So if you've got it closed, it doesn't get too hot in here. Yes, this boat's got air conditioning, but yeah, it's nicely shaded, so it's not really, really bright in here if you have got it closed. But when you open it up, wow, the effect is extraordinary, especially when teamed with these really, really large windows on either side. Nice comfortable seating area here. It's all very sociable. I like the material as well. Feels like yards are moving away from leather, and I think that's a good thing. This is more warmer, easy to look after, feels nice and comfortable. Clever table too. It rises up and down, the push of a button, and then it opens up, obviously, but then you can also slide it around like that, all done in one movement, one hand. And then if you want to fold it down again, it's one hand, over it goes, slide it into the middle, and it's away. Works really nicely. Just storage down here, AV systems tucked in there as well. And the TV on this boat, it's a pop-up version, and it's just over there behind this sofa. Hit a button, up it goes, and it's well placed over the bigger side of the seating area. That's the main deck then. Let's head downstairs and have a look at the accommodation. One of the nice parts about this design is how open this lobby area is to the windscreen. So it's lovely and bright here in the lobby area. It's a little bit darker in the cabins because of that dark wood as well. The lighting is very stylish, but as you'll see when we get inside there, it is a little bit dark, especially in the forward cabin when you haven't got the big windows like you've got amidships. And one of the most impressive things about the layout of this boat is, compared to its rivals in this sector, it's incredibly flexible for a production boat. So for example, you can have the galley down if you want, and if you did, it would be down here, and that just gives you some more seating up there. You can have a fourth cabin down here or a separate study area, but what most people go for is what they call the Grand Master. A great name, and we'll have a closer look at that in a moment. But for now, let's just head and look at the VIP cabin. This is right forward, has a good sized private ensuite here on the port side, as you can see, no issues with headroom in here. There's a reasonable amount of floor space as well, so you can move around each other if there are two people in here. There's a television mounted up here on the bulkhead. The reason why it's a little bit dark as well is we've got the blind across and the cushions up on top, so if you didn't have those on, then you probably would have a bit more natural light in here, but you've still got a decent amount of hull window on both sides with portholes inset, so you can get some natural ventilation here. But it's very nicely executed. I like the little tray you've got on either side, and they've got built-in induction chargers for a mobile phone. You've got reading lights up at the top. I like the detail they've worked into the ceiling here and up at the bed head. It's all very interesting, nicely finished. They've even got a little bureau down here worked into this section here underneath the mirror, and then you've got a decent hanging cupboard here, if I can find the catch down here. So yeah, you've got a full height lit hanging wardrobe. That's nice. Now the other cabin, guest cabin on here, is to starboard. It's a good sized twin cabin, nice amount of storage. It's also en suite, and there's a day head. So there's plenty of bathrooms, plenty of privacy on board this boat. That's a nice touch. And the other thing you can do is to add an infill there to make it into a double if you want to. But let's go and check out the main event, shall we? This is the day head. I mentioned that it is just a toilet, but it's quite extravagant to have just a separate day head on a boat of this size. And talking of extravagant, well, this cabin, this option, the Grand Master, is really what sets this boat apart in this sector. This is a really fabulous space for a 65-foot sports cruiser. Decked out here is an office, as you can see, but you've got your stool down here that pops up, a bit of storage, more storage up here. It just feels very luxurious to have this amount of space with this sort of fit out on a boat of this size. And as I said, if you did have the fourth cabin option, this is where it would be. If you had the galley down, this is where it would be. But this is the option that most people go for, this Grand Master. And let's carry on inside it, shall we? Because it is a lovely space when you're here inside the cabin. Totally flat floor all the way around the bed. I'm 6 foot, and you can see how much headroom I've got above my head here. Obviously, we're getting the benefit of those huge hull windows, and you've got this nice seating area here as well, so you can sit and do a bit of work looking out over the water. The bed's a really good size, and it's set at a good height. Again, you've got nice attention to detail on the bedside tables, built-in induction charging, drawers down here, repeaters for the light switches, so you don't have to get out of bed to control all the lighting in here. You've obviously got climate control in here. Each cabin has got climate control, so they can set it to their own temperature. Over on that side, you've got sort of under cabinet storage, and then the big hanging locker is here on the starboard side, and there's also access in there, of course, to a private bathroom. It's a really nice cabin, this. The last place to look at then is the engine room. Because the boat's got a tender garage, you have to drop down to the engine room through a hatch on the port side, so you come down a ladder, and then actually the space down this side to move around and inspect isn't too bad. But because of that tender garage moulding, of course, space over the engines isn't great. They've done some sensible stuff to negate that though, so you've got the fuel filters both on this side, so you don't have to climb to the other end of the engine room to get to the other fuel filter. It's a shame they've not got clear bowls, so you can't inspect the fuel by eye, but they are at least in a convenient position. A bit more difficult to get to the raw water strainers, but the IPS pods, because the transom goes up like that, you have got some decent space over there to get to the IPS pods, which isn't always the case. If you have the Seakeeper fitted, it's tucked down here behind me with the generators staggered above. Often these are stacked right on top of each other, so that does compromise access to whatever's below, but it's nice that they're separated so you can get to them independently. It's fine, it's, you know, space here is okay, but it is a bit of a clambering job to get around the engines. It's not too bad. Let's fire them up then and see what she's like around the marina. As I mentioned out at sea, it's IPS only. That means it's slow speed. Of course, you've got joystick control, the usual thing. Push it to go sideways, twist it to twist. You all know the gig by now. You also know what I'm going to say is I would probably go for the bow thruster every single time. It just gives you that, especially these proportional ones, give you a nice little bit of fine control when you just want to tweak the bow. You don't want to have to use the joystick necessarily, especially when you're coming stern to. Do find that really helpful. This particular boat, as I said, has got DPS as well, so dynamic positioning system from Volvo. You hit the button down here and it just holds you in place, so that if you're on your own, or you know, two of you, you can both be involved in hanging out the fenders, or if you're waiting for a bridge or fuel pontoon, you don't have to constantly be on and off the throttle. It just pins the boat in place. But as I said on deck, the only downside about the position is it's the same side as the cockpit joystick, so you have no real way comfortably of berthing port side too. I think you'd probably be doing whatever you can to be starboard side too. But in terms of the position and how the IPS works from here, all very good. The other interesting thing about how Sunseeker present this in the 65 Sport Yacht is that they are exactly the same price. So really all you have to choose is what layout works best for you. Yes, the Sport Yacht gives you that little bit more living space, and I have to say, as a boat to drive for a bit of fun, nothing beats that Sky Helm. But this boat, as a cruising package of fast, refined Grand Tourer with single deck living, I think this proves that there's plenty of legs left in the sports cruiser genre. But let me know below, I'm going to pin a comment, which would you have, this or the Sportsbridge version? I'd be interested to know. There you have it then, that's our review of the Sunseeker Predator 65. I hope you enjoyed the review. If you did, please do give us a like. And if you'd like to watch a review of one of this boat's rivals, the Fairline Phantom 65, you can do that by clicking up here. And if you'd like to subscribe to YachtBuyer, please click up here. Thanks again for watching.